Welcome to TBL Scope on the Big Lead. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. That is Brian Giuffra. Today we're going to be talking about the ginormous deal that Tony Romo signed with CBS and then what ESPN might do from here. And then we're also going to go through the NBA championship gambling odds real quick. So Brian, Tony Romo signed a deal, $17 million a year. It could be as long as 10 years if Viacom CBS keeps the NFL. What were your initial impressions?
I thought it was a deal CBS had to make. You know, he's become the face of their NFL coverage. His rapport with Nance is just really unparalleled, in my opinion. And if they really want to stay in the NFL game, which is really driving their entire sports coverage overall, they had to make this deal. So it made sense that they maybe overpaid for him, maybe didn't. But I did think that no matter what, this was a move that they had to make.
It was a move they had to make. It was a move Disney and ESPN really wanted to make, but as a company did not necessarily have to make. Viacom CBS really needs the NFL to renew, and this was a big sign of their commitment to the league. So what happened was CBS and Viacom had been separate companies for a number of years. They originally had been together, and then they were separate, and now they're together again. Since the merger, I don't know, 4 or 6 months ago, the value of the company has plummeted to the extent that it's what CBS was before the merger, and Viacom would effectively be worth nothing. And so they need the NFL as a way to pressure the Comcast, DirecTVs, Dish Networks, YouTube TVs of the world to carry Nickelodeon and MTV and Paramount Network. And so you have a lot more leverage if you're telling those people, hey, all of your customers aren't going to be able to watch the 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon game of the week. And keeping Romo is a big way for CBS to show the NFL that as a company, they're very serious about staying in this relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. But as you pointed out, I think ESPN in some ways did need to make this kind of a deal because they have this big hole on their Monday Night Football coverage now. I'd love to get your thoughts on who you think is the best person to fill that role.
Well, clearly the best person is Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has told them to go jump in the Atlantic Ocean the last 2 years in a row. Maybe the fact that the pay scale has reached $17 million for Tony Romo could entice him to change his mind. If I recall correctly, last year it was kind of like in the 10 million range for Peyton Manning. I don't know if that extra 5, 7, or even $8 million that Disney would be prepared to pay him now would make a difference, but I guess it is a slightly different conversation. My guess is he still says no. There were rumors last year that he didn't want to call games quarterbacked not only by his brother Eli Manning, but also Peyton Manning. But also Tom Brady. Some of those rumors got denied, but then they kept resurfacing, so it's difficult to know 1,000% if they were true. Let's just say I believe them. After Peyton Manning, then the options get a little bit thin. What I would do if it were me in charge is I would go with Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner calls games on radio. He calls some games on NFL Network. He does a really good job. He's a former league MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's really likable. Is he the most dynamic performer in the world? No, he's not. But he's like you get him and you know you're getting an A-, and I don't think like anything that ESPN does beyond that short of landing Peyton Manning is a slam dunk.
Yeah, and to your point, I think almost an A- is what they want right after Witten and Booger, right? Those kind of issues that they've had with those two. I really like that idea. I was a big advocate for Peyton as the number one guy who they're going to reach out to him and see where he stands. I agree, though. I don't think that now is the time for Peyton to come into it.
You know what they should do is they should just say, "Hey, Peyton Manning, Sandy Montag. How about you name what it would take for you to do this? We're not going to go through a back and forth charade of negotiations. We'll tell you, you say what you got to do. We'll give you a week and a half. are you going to do it or not? And then they can respond to what he says and do it or not. But like to go through this, like kind of taking private jets to his ranch in Colorado and sipping bourbon by the fire, like just spare us the like weeks or months of waiting for this and make a quick decision on Peyton Manning. And then if you can't get him, that's when you got to figure out what your next plan is.
But do you think that Peyton would even go for what ESPN's current package is? I mean, I think they'd almost have to like assure him that they were going to be in that Super Bowl rotation, because Peyton is a competitive guy. And if now you're going to be comparing him to Tony Romo, Romo's calling the Super Bowls, he's calling the AFC Championship games. I don't know if it would even be enough for just the money element.
Yeah, it's tricky right now because those deals are presumably just ready to get ink to paper, for Disney to get some packages and get in the Super Bowl rotation and reset what the marketplace is for the other bidders of these packages. But the NFL and Disney can't get into that arrangement until their collective bargaining agreement is done and labor peace is assured. And so, look, the NFL would love the players to sign that deal so they can go about focusing on plundering the TV networks together, but that hasn't gotten done yet. And so it's really unclear what the timing will be as far as when the CBA does get done and whether that's able to impact Disney's pursuit of Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and to get back to the point, I think if they were going to go for somebody who could make some noise within the space, Pat McAfee has really just stepped up in all the different forms of media over the last 3 years, radio, visual. He's just been amazing. And even last night he was at the Lakers game, announcing Zion Williamson and how he's been dunking on white guys for 10 years or something like that. I mean, the guy, he makes headlines, and not for the negative reasons that Witten and Booger were making them. I know that he has some issues in terms of like longevity at places, but I do think he would be a very interesting option. And I mean, listen, I watch Monday Night Football anyway, but I think he could actually get some of these casual fans from his podcast, casual fans that follow him on Twitter, to be more interested in Monday Night Football. And ultimately, that's what ESPN has to do, is they have to make Monday Night Football a marquee event again. And I don't know how they do that without somebody like a Peyton Manning or a Pat McAfee. I think they need that big presence.
Well, it starts with the quality of games that they get as much as anything else. And so if you're getting that like Chiefs Rams barn burner, all of a sudden it doesn't really matter who's calling the games. But I agree with you. I think Pat McAfee would be a good choice. I think if I'm ESPN, given what you said about the longevity, I might find a peripheral way to use him instead of having him in the booth. Maybe he could be like a second sideline reporter with Lisa Salters. For example, Fox uses 2 sideline reporters on their marquee games. They have Christina Pink on one sideline, Aaron Andrews on the other. If ESPN wanted to use McAfee, that might be a way where they can use him. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, they're not kind of stuck in the mud trying to figure out, okay, what do we do for the booth this week? And then as far as internal candidates, I think we'll see that Louis Riddick is in the conversation again. I expect, if let's say they don't get Peyton Manning, I expect there to be a lot of noise that they're taking a serious look at Dan Orlovsky. Orlovsky has really distinguished himself both in the college football booth and in the studio as somebody who is high energy and really knows the game and can break down what happened on the field quickly. And so I get it that the NFL and the networks really do try to gravitate towards big names for their color commentators. Like Tony Romo and Troy Aikman were both Dallas Cowboys. There's a reason they're going after Peyton Manning. There's a reason the networks are disappointed that Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers aren't retiring this offseason. But I do think that Orlovsky is another solid bet to, in a vacuum, do a good job at the work.
I will say that there are some reports now that Rivers might still retire, so maybe he could be an option. Those are just kind of some things that I read on ESPN today, in Graziano's like kind of rundown of the NFL scouting combine and what he was hearing. But listen, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, and I would love to have a bourbon with you and talk about this after the decision is made, and we can talk about who actually was wound up choosing, or who ESPN wound up choosing, and if we like them or not.
Let's move on to NBA title odds. These are via Jeff Sherman at the Las Vegas Superbook. So now, for the first time all season, the Bucks are alone as favorites at 9-4. After that, you get the Clippers and Lakers at 11-4, the Rockets at 14-1, the Celtics at 18-1, the Nuggets at 20-1. Now we're getting into more long shot territory. Raptors 30-1, 76ers 40-1, Heat, Jazz, and Mavs 40-1. What do you think about these latest odds?
Well, listen, first of all, I think they make sense. If you look at what the Bucks are doing, they're just destroying everybody. Fastest to clinch a playoff berth, I believe, ever. I could be wrong about that. But I know that they just absolutely have steamrolled the competition. I watched some of their game yesterday. Giannis obviously looks just like an MVP again, even though he probably won't win it this year. And their team seems to have that makeup of a team that lost last year and is really trying to make it back this year. You know, I understand also why the Lakers and Clippers aren't the favorite anymore. They look really even, especially when you think about the Lakers' second unit. I mean, that they looked pretty bad yesterday against a Pelicans team that, quite frankly, was just so overmatched by the first unit. But, you know, I like the Lakers. I think it's the story makes sense right now when you look at Anthony Davis and LeBron, and if they're able to play really great defense and kind of will that team forward, that makes a lot of sense. I don't like the Clippers. I'm in the minority there. I just think that they have too many moving parts. Sometimes it's like when you create this super team, it takes time for that to mesh. Remember when Kawhi went to Toronto last year, he was just one additional player. It wasn't like everybody was new there. Everybody was there, and Kawhi kind of created that little glue to bring it all together. I'll just say this. I picked the Lakers before the year. I'm going to stick with them. Nothing I've seen from them really indicates a huge drop off. I am concerned about their second unit, but in terms of a dark horse team, I would go with the Miami Heat. I'm just going to throw that out there. They look like a pretty solid team, especially at home. I know they've had a lot of road struggles, but I'm going to be interested to see them. But if I'm putting my money anywhere, it's on the Lakers.
But you take the path home tonight. Are you going to go on the DraftKings app and put $10 on the Heat at 40-1? Put your money where your mouth is, like drop a little Hamilton on that long shot?
I mean, if I'm going to do it, I got to put 20 on it, really, because then you're actually getting a really good payout. I mean, I know 10 to win 400 is solid. I haven't actually put any money where my mouth is. Of course, let's not forget I picked the Chiefs before the season to win the Super Bowl. So just throwing that out there as well, America. So if you're looking for somebody to pick. But I said the Lakers before the season. I still like them. I'm going to roll with them, but I do understand why the odds have changed in favor of the Bucks.
If we're looking in the 40-1 range, I kind of like the Mavs because Kristaps Porzingis, he came back from ACL surgery a little slow, as everybody in really basketball and football tends to do. But now all of a sudden in the last few weeks, he's really coming on. But the West is such a gauntlet again. That's the real reason why the Bucks are the biggest favorites that they are, is that like the Clippers, Lakers, and Rockets are kind of like maybe a rock, paper, scissor match. And it's difficult to really forecast which one of them beats which one of them. Whereas I think you can reasonably say that the Bucks have a better chance against like the Celtics and Sixers and Heat of the world than those Clippers, Lakers, and Rockets have against each other. And so once you get to the finals, that's a big that's obviously factors into these odds. A big thing that the Bucks they have this year that they didn't have last year is that Dante DiVincenzo is a really big spark, and I think I'm looking forward to national audiences getting reacquainted with him. Obviously, they know him from the Villanova days, but he's been a really fun player for the Bucks this season. I'm really excited for these NBA playoffs. I do wish that the first round got over with quicker, because it's really like the Elite Eight in the NBA is really where the action starts. We've got kind of 2.5 weeks of these first round matchups that just slog on before we get to the real games.
I know you remember those 5-game series from back in the 90s. I loved those 5-game series. It really made every game feel very important in the beginning. It was like if you got off to a slow start and you're at home and all of a sudden you're down 1-0, that was a major issue. I do miss those 5-game series. The one thing I'm going to add is I'm actually surprised, even though I'm not a big supporter of the Clippers, I'm surprised Vegas isn't more on them. I guess that says a lot about how they view the Rockets. But if I'm the Clippers and the Lakers, I don't want to face the Rockets, because I do think that is a rock, paper, scissors. I think it's a coin flip for either of those teams. And right now it looks like the Rockets would play the Lakers in the semifinals. And that's no offense to the Nuggets. They're obviously a super talented team. But I don't want to face the Rockets.
With these teams like the Bucks and the Nuggets and even the Rockets, it's that they don't have players that we've seen break through and win before. And so the Bucks even acknowledged this in a ESPN.com Kevin Arnovitz story last week, where they were like, look, I get why people are saying, oh, they're a regular season juggernaut. That's what we were last year. We didn't get it done when it came to it in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Toronto Raptors. Sports fans just have a hard time envisioning people that haven't won before breaking through, and that's something that until they do it, the Bucks and the Nuggets and the Rockets, all those players are going to have to deal with. These Lakers haven't broken through, and neither of these Clippers, but LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard have. And so that's why I think you see a little bit less skepticism about them than those other three teams.
And let's not forget about JaVale McGee as well. He also has broken through. He's got
two-time NBA champion, and Justin Bieber music producer JaVale McGee. This has been TBL Scope. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. That's Brian Giuffra. Appreciate everybody who stuck around. We're going to be doing this at least every Monday, and we will talk to you soon.